Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're watching. I'm Dan Turchin, CEO of PeopleReign, the AI system of intelligence for IT and HR employee service. And today we'll be discussing how to build a business case for AI with a live customer success story and a product demo. Thank you to our partner Thirdera for sponsoring today's event. You'll very soon meet Justin Webster from Thirdera, who will be leading the demo. Now, we're here because the world of work will change more in the next decade than it has probably in literally the past 250 years since the first industrial revolution. As leaders, we have a special opportunity to determine how the next billion employees will interact with technology to become better team members and, more important, better humans. Defining that future starts today, and you truly are a critical part of it. I have 5 objectives for today's session. I want to make sure you understand how AI is used to improve employee service. We're going to talk through the 4 R's of AI-driven automation. We'll go through a case study and show you how this stuff works in action. I will hand it over to Justin for a live demo of PeopleReign, and then we'll wrap up with some actionable tips. I really hope that you take something away from today's webcast that you can go and implement immediately in your organization. That's really the primary objective that I have for today's session. And the future of employee service is all about AI-driven automation. And we talk about this model where we automate the life cycle of the employee service request. And what that means is looking at the traditional way we've delivered service and thinking about how a layer of intelligence can get kind of wrapped around the whole life cycle, starting with the request management process. So we're all familiar with traditional catalog, the service catalog, traditional knowledge management, KCS, or knowledge-centered service. Well, just imagine if 100% of the time your employees could find the right thing to request from your service catalog. And just imagine if every resolved incident had AI to be able to select the most appropriate knowledge article. This is the reality. Using an AI-first system of intelligence, you're going to get that kind of additional value added to your traditional catalog and knowledge management processes. Move along that service lifecycle and think about the process of diagnosing and resolving employee service issues using incident problem change management, configuration management, or the CMDB. Think about what would happen if in real time you could guarantee that all of your CIs that you discover into your CI were automatically mapped to their appropriate services, and then you could make your IPC processes service aware. All of a sudden, you could get much smarter about knowing who to involve in the process and reducing your MTTR and making sure that the same issues don't happen multiple times. That's the value of applying AI-driven automation, automated machine learning, to the traditional IPC and config management process. Orchestration, wouldn't it be nice if you had some kind of intelligence that helped you map every request to the right orchestration task? So you could know essentially every time the risk of the change that you're about to take, and more importantly, that the right action is being associated with the right request. So that applies more to problem management than incident management, but wouldn't it be nice if you knew that all of your historical data was accurate and consistent, and you could feed that high quality historical data into making better automated decisions for future incidents, problems, and changes? And lastly, wouldn't it be nice if you could use AI-driven intelligence to automate the learning process? So every time anyone does something, you get immediate feedback. And based on that immediate feedback, you know whether or not you need to improve your content. Wouldn't it be nice if you could discover where the gaps are in your content based on what questions are being asked for which there's no appropriate knowledge? Think about every aspect of the service health lifecycle, and think about a time in the not so distant future when you're going to be able to use AI and machine learning to make everything smart and continuously improve the quality of the automated decisions. Before we get there, so the 4 R's of AI-driven automation. So I want to be really clear about some core use cases and personas. So as you start to think about kind of your AI-driven automation journey, I want to be really crystal clear who gets the value of which kinds of integrations. So starting at the top of the pyramid, the request management process. So your employees, your end users, will be able to benefit from NLP, natural language processing driven automation. So they'll be able to ask a virtual agent using their own voice, their own language, and it will respond interactively with either the answer to a question, the item that they have requested, so incident management, service catalog, or knowledge management. So ask it a question, tell about a problem, or order something from the catalog. When the virtual agent isn't sufficient, it's going to hand off with context by routing the new ticket or the new case to the most appropriate employee assignment group. And then once AI is used to automate the hygiene of that ticket as it's being routed, the third R, or resolution, is going to kick in. And that's where AI is will be able to present a set of next best actions to the live agent. So reduce your MTTR if the virtual agent wasn't able to achieve full autonomous call deflection. And then the fourth R is restore. So I mentioned automate the learning process, and that's where the benefit really accrues to the service owner. So after you've managed the request process, you've managed the routing process, you've managed the resolution process, managed the restoration process to be sure that you suppress the impact of future issues on employees. And in some cases, using AI-driven trend analytics, you'll be able to prevent any kind of service disruption before it occurs. So some of the benefits that customers using AI to automate the service health lifecycle report: 65% reduction in ticket volume, 45% reduction in MTTR, 35% improvement in the adoption of self-service capabilities, 86% reduction in cost per call. These are all very achievable. Historically, in a typical year, an IT organization might cheer loudly, swing from the chandeliers if you get maybe 4 to 6% improvement in a particular process. Now we're talking about outsized gains, 65% call reduction in the span of a year. That's the new reality. That's the new reality if you embrace AI-driven automation and really think about it not as science fiction technology, but as a way to achieve better business outcomes faster. This case study comes from a large global organization. It's an insurance company, a Fortune 500 company. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the problems they had before engaging PeopleReign, what it is that they do with PeopleReign, and most importantly, what the business benefits are and what's their roadmap. I'll also talk you through their journey, how long it took, how they onboarded the technology, and I'll even talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls that they faced and kind of try to bottle that up in terms of learning that I hope you can take back into your organizations. So the problem that this organization had initially was through a combination of technologies from Microsoft's NLP framework and Watson for machine learning from IBM, they were struggling. So they were using ServiceNow as a system of record, but a lot of the intelligence that they were thinking they'd get from the system of record needed to be supplemented by these outside vendors. But even after an investment of about $2 million, what they found is that employee adoption was low. The quality of the answers that they were getting back from the machine learning models from primarily Watson was low, and the quality of the intent detection that they were getting through Microsoft's NLP framework was very poor. As a result, there was a lot of manual effort. They actually had to go in and manually manage all of the dialogues that the virtual agent could have with the employees. And so basically, they went from a solution that was 100% manual, but at least it was accurate when they had live agents involved, to one that was automated, but inaccurate. So it didn't reduce call volume at all. In fact, it generated a lot more calls than it eliminated because of the poor quality of the NLP, the natural language processing. So they came to PeopleReign. They'd been referred to PeopleReign by ServiceNow as the system of intelligence for employee service. And immediately they were able to get benefits. So within literally the first 30 days, they were in production with a machine learning model, first to support the live agents, to support the routing of inbound requests. And then subsequently, they layered on top of that contextual recommendations for the live agents. And then eventually, they deployed a virtual agent in front of their, they call it a multi-portal for IT, HR, and finance issues. And whereas they weren't getting a lot of value after $2 million of an investment in Microsoft and IBM technologies, within 30 days, they were able to integrate real machine learning, optimized using PeopleReign domain ontologies, which understand about 5 million concepts related to employee service, deploy those, integrate them with ServiceNow for IPC, incident, problem, and change management, and see immediate results. One result that you see we share here is this is a direct quote from the CIO who said within the first 6 months, call volume was down 47%. Now, just as a thought experiment, I'd ask you to think about your KPIs and come up with any time in the past when you've been able to achieve that kind of improvement in your KPI in a period of 6 months. That's the benefit of applying AI and machine learning to some of these traditional processes. Same KPIs, same teams, in many cases, even the same processes, just done a lot more efficiently when you bolt on kind of the right AI and machine learning technology to a traditional service delivery process. And if you're already using a system of record like ServiceNow, you're ahead of the game because you already have the workflow platform and you already have a lot of your process in place. All you need to do is automate the process to be able to eliminate the need to do routine tasks manually. That's where AI is going to offload the need to do all of this routine stuff, and you'll immediately see things like call volume drop 47%. Now, a little bit about this customer's journey. So I mentioned 30 days to value. In fact, that's the commitment that PeopleReign makes to all of our customers, regardless of the volume of your historical data and regardless of your system of record. PeopleReign is going to commit that in the first 30 days, you pick the right KPIs, the right key performance indicators. And as part of an onboarding process, PeopleReign will do an AI briefing for you, a data analysis for you, and help you understand where you're going to get the most tangible benefits within 30 days. So in this case, I've gone through kind of a 4-quarter journey. This customer has been in production a little over a year. Starting with the middle of last year, provided access to PeopleReign. PeopleReign is a SaaS service living in the cloud, provided access to their data, was automated through the PeopleReign data pipeline. The first model was trained, was ready to go into production. Within a quarter, they were in production with 2 applications, both which were live agent facing, classify and recommend. They then extended that in the 3rd quarter after deploying to the virtual agent. I mentioned this multi-portal for IT, HR, and finance. And then most recently, they went live with trend analytics using an application from PeopleReign called Insights. Now, the other nice thing is that they didn't need to add any data scientists. They just have their traditional service management owners living in the workbench in PeopleReign to be able to manage the dialogues for the virtual agent, manage the lifecycle of their machine learning models. The PeopleReign data pipeline is automated, and the PeopleReign automated machine learning framework is automated so that the users of the system don't need to do algorithm selection. They don't need to do feature selection. They don't need to do hyperparameter tuning. They don't need to understand precision recall curves. These are all some of the tasks that traditionally need to be owned by data scientists, but which are offloaded to the system of intelligence. In this case, PeopleReign, tightly integrated with ServiceNow to make that whole customer lifecycle automated and more intelligent. So this is just one customer journey, but it's a representative example of how you can take things like automated request management, automated resolution, automated restoration of service, and really benefit the end users, improve your self-service adoption. I'm going to talk in a bit after the demo about some actionable takeaways that I'd encourage you to take back in your own organization. But just know that any KPI that you have, whether it's MTTR, whether it's self-service adoption, whether it's cost per ticket, call volume reduction, self-service adoption, these are all good candidates for the kinds of improvement that you've seen from this customer. So with that said, I know that you probably joined to hear both the case study as well as the live demo. At this point, I'm going to hand over to Justin from Thirdera, and we'll continue with the session with a live demo. Justin, take it away.
Hello, everyone. Glad you joined us. So let's give an example here. We work for ABC company, and currently we're having extremely high call volume at the help desk, and our incidents are getting a little crazy at the time. So we decided to implement PeopleReign to help automate and make a better experience for our users. So with that, I want to show you some of the examples that we've noticed that a lot of our users use, starting with a very common one. I need to update my password. You see, we get a nice snippet here with information that knows we're using SSO for our account. And from here, we can either create a new ticket if we need to, or we can just say, thanks, this helped, because the way this is set up, we'll actually tie in to the back end of our SSO to help automate the password reset process, which is pretty nice. Another common scenario here would be, let's see, I need a new phone. This is a common one for people that have a lot of devices out in the field. And here we used a form in the snippet to help the user create a ticket rather easily instead of having to go to somewhere else, to a knowledge article or to another form in the catalog and things like that. So from here, they get a nice information. They can select, for example, the carrier, their data plans they want to choose, and optionally an address they want. And once this is submitted, it will actually place all that information into the ticket itself to be handled by the help desk. Let's see, another one. Let's see, what are my open tickets? Here we get a form with all our open tickets. We can click straight to those to get some sort of status and notes and relevant data like that, which helps us keep everything in order so you know what's going on, what has been resolved, what hasn't. So help you stay on top of things. Sort of that inbox zero type of mentality. And take a look at some of the classify and recommend information that we have here. So I'm going to pull up this ticket, and this is for updating McAfee antivirus on the Mac. So this is an incident that was submitted. You see up here that we had this set up so it will calculate the best subcategory for this incident. And right now it is saying it is antivirus, which is quite correct. So we can go ahead and set that, and it will update the information to help with all our data management. Below here, we have what's recommended, some articles, other external information, things like that, that PeopleReign feels that we should be using to help with to help supplement this incident. And I can see that this first one here had prepare for Mac OS upgrade using McAfee. That looks like a good article that should go with this incident for future reference. So with that being said, we can go ahead and pin that and save it to this incident. So now PeopleReign in the back end will gather that information and use it to help facilitate better returns on the front end side here, which is very nice. You can also tie in office related like HR information. So when will office reopen, which is a common one these days. But here we are passing in information that is very beneficial to give you exactly what you're looking for, HR related. So a lot of this will help definitely eliminate calls and incidents being created, manually, things like that through the help desk. So it's a very time efficient and a very easy solution So instead of having waiting on the phone and dealing with the help desk, which can get quite busy at times. So now let's jump into the admin section of PeopleReign itself here. So the first thing I want to show you are the snippets. Now this is what's displayed back to the user based on the certain utterances, which we'll get to in just a second. And so we can fine tune these. It's just HTML based with some extras thrown in there. So you can create quite a few of these and really fine tune them to exactly how it will work for your business model. Let's see, let me open one of these up real quick. Here we go. And you see, these are the related utterances. So these are just basic phrases that the system's going to look for to help suggest this as a possible solution to the question. And you see, you add as many as you want here. You get pretty advanced in some of these settings, which I don't go too far into that just for this demo, but you can get you can fine tune things quite a bit. And then speaking of those utterances, now utterances are what the user has typed in, what they're looking for. So like right here, how do I register for guest Wi-Fi? And the nice thing about this, it will provide the best answer for that snippet, or the best answer snippet for this utterance. So sometimes it may not be correct, especially if you're starting out with this system. You can reclassify these to fit any of these utterances that may need a little bit of help. So even if it doesn't have a right answer, you can give it one to help the user out in the future. And the other things are we have some greetings and closings in here. Now we need to have one. So greeting is obviously what you're going to get at the very beginning when you first start the agent here. It's pretty straightforward on that. You can have several of those, and it will just randomly choose one each time. And some of the same things with the closings, which we've seen that one displayed here as well. Right there. Okay, next thing would be the insights. Now this is going to give you a lot of information and metrics based on how things are working. And this is very beneficial to help you really fine tune and hone in the information that's being presented and captured by the users. So we'll look at our virtual agent summary here. So you can take a look at some of these KPIs that we have. It's quite a bit of information. I don't want to break all this down just now, but you can see like how many users are being engaged, conversations, how many tickets were created because of those, which that's a good one. So you can know if you're actually reducing ticket volume. And one of my favorites, being I guess the developer side of things, is what's recommended and least recommended, so you can help clean up the data that's not being used appropriately. And so here's our classify section. If you remember, this was what was at the top of one of these incidents, like suggest a new subcategory. You set this up for different fields, but right now we just have set on subcategory to help with processing these tickets. Let's go and select this. So yes, this information, you can really take a deep dive into this and get pretty extensive knowledge from this. So your precision and coverage will help you get to that curve to have maximum response for what you're looking for. You can even see the maximum categories, or the top categories are being searched and the requests and how often. So you actually know if you're getting the bang for your buck and you see how many people are actually using this, how often, and really what categories they need the most help with, which is very beneficial. And the same thing with recommend. Again, that was at the very bottom here to recommend the different articles, in this case, that would best represent a solution to the question for the incident. Again, you can have precision coverage, so we know what we're getting back. So you see the top documents, and this will, of course, align with probably the top categories for classify, because most likely it'll be the same information. So you can actually make sure that your what's being recommended does actually go with the category and subcategory that PeopleReign is selecting.
I told you that one of my primary objectives for today's session was leaving you with some actionable tips, and then also helping you with all the preparation you'll need to prepare to lead your organization's first AI initiative. I'm going to go through two last slides. We'll open it up to your questions, and then we'll wrap up. So first, we've done this hundreds of times around the globe. about the best way to deploy these technologies at scale oftentimes in global settings. So a few things to think about. One, optimize your AI strategy for call deflection, not for conversations. Oftentimes, we get enamored with the technology and we want to see a human-like bot interact with employees. I just want you to keep in mind, you get zero credit for a chatty bot. What you get credit for is improving business outcomes. And oftentimes that's things like call volume reduction, it's MTTR reduction, it's improving the user experience. And the fact is that a conversational virtual agent is oftentimes not aligned with the goals of autonomous call deflection. So think less about anthropomorphizing the bot or making it seem human, and think more about the least number of touches, the least amount of dialogue to achieve the highest volume of call deflection. It should answer questions, it should order goods and services from the catalog, and it should resolve problems when they occur. And oftentimes when you're designing your snippets like Justin showed, or your intents, or your machine learning models, I want you to think about the way to optimize for your business process and for delivering a better customer experience. Think less about the technology or about the science fiction view of what Jarvis might be able to do for you. That's not really the way you're going to get adoption from your employees. Number two, everybody brings messy, inconsistent, incomplete data to the start of their journey. Don't be intimidated. A big part of what a system of intelligence like PeopleReign does is helps you find representative examples where the data is inconsistent, and it will give you what we call active learning tasks. It will then retroactively use the output of your tasks to clean your historical data. So as important as the dialogue management is being able to make sure your data hygiene is maintained. And the benefit of a system of intelligence is that the quality of your data is maintained automatically once you accept these active learning tasks. A sample of active learning task might be, in the past, issues related to telephony, half of the time they went to, let's say, Seattle, and half of the time they were resolved ultimately in Bangalore. Well, unless you want the machine learning model to just essentially flip a coin and pick, this is a good candidate for an active learning task. So someone who understands the process, an SME or a subject matter expert, might say, well, we shut down the Seattle call center last year, and since then we switched to Bangalore. So you just click Bangalore for future telephony related incidents. Retroactively, all the data will be cleaned. And for all of the telephony issues moving forward, the virtual agent will understand how to route, how to recommend, how to interact conversationally with users who have telephony issues. Lastly, think about the personas and think about the impact on your business process as you decide what the relative priorities are. Oftentimes, I'd say the vast majority of PeopleReign customers first deploy either classify or recommend for live agents, not because the virtual agent isn't important, but because from a process perspective, being able to get value within 30 days, like I mentioned previously, there's no impact to the process to be able to just make the live agent smarter. Same routing, same ITIL processes, same people, very little training, only now they see the answer embedded in the ticket. Or now there are no tickets that languish in the wrong queue. So very unobtrusive from a process perspective if you start with live agents. Once the live agents have adopted the AI-based recommendations, oftentimes that's the right time, or while you're deploying classify and recommend, that's the time to be designing the virtual agent. But the virtual agent is oftentimes intrusive from a process perspective and can require more of a cultural learning curve. And because that's the case, sometimes it's just a longer gestation period before you can get a ton of value out of the virtual agent. Very powerful technologies, but really be very intentional about, are you targeting the end user persona, the live agent persona, or maybe you want to start with AI-driven analytics using the service owner persona, like what Justin demoed. So last slide I have to share with you before we go into Q&A talks about how to onboard AI from an organizational perspective. I shared up front that I want you to be empowered to lead your organization's AI initiative. And here are some of the things that the best organizations do that you can learn from. So starting from the left, so understand how to prepare your data. Where does it live? Who owns it? How much of it is there? PeopleReign will automate the process of cleaning it, but it is going to be incumbent on you to figure out where the answers might live. Are they in SharePoint? Are they in maybe ServiceNow knowledge? Maybe they live in email, historical emails or chat transcripts, or maybe you want to ingest information from Office 365 online documentation. Those are all good candidates for the knowledge graph that feeds, let's say, recommend or the virtual agent. Start to think about where the data lives. Second, think about your KPIs. So kind of the big five that we keep coming back to: your call volume, your MTTR, your cost per ticket, your self-service adoption, your customer sat scores. These are all things that are legitimate priorities. For one organization, it might be, we need to reduce our MTTR by 5% this quarter. Well, great. MTTR reduction is most closely aligned with the application called Recommend, embedding the right answer or the set of next best actions in the ticket. But depending on what your KPIs are, what your board commits, your internal commits are, that may dictate where you kind of jump into your AI journey. And then lastly, on the right side, adoption. So 5 things that we see the most effective organizations do better than all the rest. 1, good practice, start with live agents, use the feedback widgets, create a leaderboard. So oftentimes we talk about this as gamifying adoption, but intentionally reward users who make better use of the AI-based predictions and recommendations. And that can come in the form of a leaderboard for live agents, but you also may want to give some feedback or create a reward system for employees using the virtual agent, because every time they have a successful experience, they use the virtual agent to autonomously deflect a call. It's a better experience for them, and it reduces not just your call volume, but your cost per ticket. Consider sunsetting your most expensive channels. So we talk about shifting the support burden left from your most expensive channel to your least expensive channel. Well, this is a good way to think about it. So sunset the email channel, let's say. Email is notoriously the most expensive, least effective channel, followed by voice. As you introduce the virtual agent, get very comfortable saying, look, in the next 6 months, we're turning off the email inbox and we're phasing in the virtual agent. But oftentimes it requires leadership. It requires a culture of being willing to automate or enforce this shift left strategy. And then lastly, publish metrics. So as a leader of your organization's AI initiative, be very clear up front about what the target metrics are, so that every other week, every month, et cetera, when you're in front of leadership, you're armed with data. And up front, you said, these are the kind of improvements that I want. Well, I guarantee you, if in that periodic meeting, you're showing tangible benefits in terms of cost reduction, benefits in terms of a better employee experience, maybe even benefits in terms of a better stock price, right? Those are the kinds of business outcomes that really are the telltale sign of an effective AI strategy. You don't want to be the one standing in front of leadership talking about the technology. I guarantee you, they don't care how many snippets you've developed or how sophisticated the domain ontologies are behind the system of intelligence. All they care about is, how is this improving our business outcomes based on metrics that you should be comfortable defining up front. So those are some actionable tips. Like I said, I want you to be able to take something away from today's webcast, whether it's the case study, seeing it in action from Justin's demo, learning from some of these tips that I'd say are, attributes of the most effective organizations, and go back immediately and start to feel like a leader and start to be an AI expert. That's what hopefully a lot of this content will let you be. We've got a number of questions. I'm going to try to get to them all. We've got about 5 or 6 minutes for Q&A before we wrap up. While I'm answering your questions, I'm going to put on the screen a last slide. What comes next? Well, what comes next is go to Our partner Thirdera's PeopleReign site, thirdera.com/PeopleReign demo. We provide a free AI briefing. If you attended this webcast, you go fill out this form. The Thirdera team will coordinate with their internal team, our internal team, and we'll make sure we continue this dialogue. Only as part of the AI briefing, we'll make it specific to your organization, your journey, your KPIs. So please take us up on that offer, free AI briefing, no commitment. You can also go to PeopleReign.io. We offer free and low-cost trials. This is our life's passion. We're a team of linguists and machine learning experts and data scientists. We've dedicated our lives to this, and so we live for being able to help you get value out of the system in, like I said, 30 days is our commitment to you. Now, with that said, I'm going to peel off some of the questions from this queue. If we don't get to your question, we'll follow up with you offline. First question: how many historical tickets are required for training? There's actually no minimum, and that's not the answer you would get from most AI first systems. But the reason that is because a big strength of PeopleReign is being able to automate the improvement of your data hygiene through techniques like I mentioned, active learning, active denoising. So bring what you have. We will assume on day 0, day -1, day 1, the data is poor quality, it's inconsistent, maybe there's not a lot of it, but part of the process of preparing the machine learning models is optimizing whatever is there to make the highest quality decisions. And then obviously the benefit of a machine learning platform is that it gets smarter continuously. Second question, how long do AI models take to train? The actual process of building the models is fairly quick, typically within a few hours. After these active learning tasks have happened, you can be production ready with a model that, let's say, does something like predict the right assignment group or predict the best, most likely knowledge article to resolve an incident. That part's easy. The real beauty of applying machine learning to these kinds of tasks is that they get smarter continuously, so that they're continuously improving in terms of their accuracy as new questions come in, as new knowledge is introduced, et cetera. But the actual process of going live with the first model, the actual training takes no more typically than a few hours. And you'll be ready with, like Justin showed in the demo, you'll have tasks, and those tasks are associated with machine learning models, and you just pick the task. We provide a full kind of API surface area. You build the task into your workflow. PeopleReign will respond with either a prediction or recommendation. Next question, do we need data scientists on our team to manage PeopleReign? I talked about this a little bit earlier. The answer is no. So you need subject matter experts who understand your process, your applications, but there's no need to understand AI algorithms. The system picks them for you. There's no need to understand how to tune the algorithms. There's no need to understand which features, which fields in the data have the most predictive power. PeopleReign does that for you. So the nice thing about what we call the data science workbench is it essentially turns, a traditional manager of a service management process into a data scientist by providing all of these capabilities in the form of very simple kind of levers and gauges. Let's see, next question, does it understand multiple languages? Good question. In fact, a good segue, our upcoming webcast is going to specifically focus on the ability of the virtual agent to understand 27 different languages. I think it's much more effective if I show rather than tell. But Cruelties will do a specific deep dive on the virtual agent's ability to detect the language of the employee and then translate its response into the employee's language of choice. You also get things like an icon showing you the detected language via a flag. You can specify whether or not the translation was of high quality. So very sophisticated, very important capability of the PeopleReign platform. Again, join us for the next webcast. I'll make sure you're all invited. We'll talk about that specifically. How is it different than ServiceNow? Quite different. So PeopleReign very, very intentionally lives in the white space We value our partnerships with systems of record like ServiceNow. Many of our customers use ServiceNow, but ServiceNow doesn't provide the kind of domain ontologies you get from PeopleReign. I mentioned previously about 5 million IT and HR concepts are understood. So the ability to translate NLP or an understanding of the utterance from the employee into NLU to be able to generate these dialogues eliminates the need to manually maintain dialogues. And that's all done with the knowledge graph, with the domain ontology. So kind of the core underlying technology required to automate the life cycle of machine learning models to do more accurate language detection, more accurate predictions, more accurate recommendations. Those are all the technological capabilities of a system of intelligence that augment your system of record like a ServiceNow. Additionally, that concept of a knowledge graph, being able to pull data from within ServiceNow, outside ServiceNow, structured, unstructured, that concept is facilitated by the data science workbench and the automated machine learning framework in PeopleReign. So all of the underlying technologies augment what you'd already be doing in ServiceNow, but there's no overlap in terms of being able to add this automated layer of machine learning. Another big benefit is that AI in this day and age is a core competence. And part of the reason why we have a strategic partnership with ServiceNow is because this is all we do. So everyone at PeopleReign is equipped to be able to deliver things like the AI briefing, lead data analyses, make recommendations about how to onboard AI. And because we've done this hundreds of times, we add a lot of value for customers that are already using ServiceNow because our customers rely on our team to be that layer of AI subject matter expertise that essentially reduces the risk of your AI initiative. I'm happy to go into more detail. I think in the interest of time, I'm just going to take this one last question, and then anything we didn't get to, again, we'll follow up on offline. And that question is how's it priced? So the PeopleReign pricing model is designed to be very intuitive. It is transparent, it's predictable, it's aligned with value. Basically, you buy a bucket of predictions and recommendations. Think of it kind of like you buy a bucket of cell phone minutes. And as you use PeopleReign to autonomously deflect calls, you're essentially taking tokens out of the bucket of recommendations that you've purchased. You only pay when you use the system of intelligence and it delivers value for your organization. So you always know what the value is. You only ask PeopleReign for recommendation when you know it's going to deliver business value, and it's aligned with value. As your MTTR drops, your call volume drops, your cost per ticket drops, that's when you're paying for use of the system of intelligence, but you decide when to use it and how to use it. And usually the number of recommendations that you would purchase up front, it's loosely aligned with the last 12 months worth of tickets that have been created. That number is going to go down a lot, oftentimes 50, 60, 70%, and you'll pay a fraction of what you would pay for the provisioning of a service using a manual process that you will actually pay PeopleReign to automate the process using AI-based predictions and recommendations. I encourage you, ask Thirdera, fill out the form, and if you want specific numbers, be happy to provide you with more detail about pricing, onboarding, the AI briefing. But that's generally how you can think about the way you consume value from the system of intelligence. That was a lot of content that we covered in a short amount of time. We will share this as a video. I will again thank Justin and the team from Thirdera for sponsoring today's webcast. And I'm going to close the way I started. Please become a leader. Please listen to some of the feedback that you heard in the case study, some of the feedback that you heard in the best practices, and take it upon yourself to reinvent your career by leading your organization's first AI initiative.